In the quiet hours of the night, when the world settles into its gentle rhythm of rest, the mind often begins to drift. It wanders far beyond the limits of the familiar, searching for stories that calm the heart and ease the breath. Tonight, on Sleep Through the Unknown, we invite you to take a slow, peaceful journey across two ancient places where stone, time, and mystery come together in ways that still soften the edges of our imagination. This is not a journey of noise or sensation. It is a journey of stillness, of dust-covered landscapes, of monolithic stones resting under ancient skies. A journey into the quiet. Let your shoulders slowly relax. Let your breath settle. And as you listen, feel yourself drifting gently into the calm of the unknown. Our story begins high in the Andean plateau of Bolivia, more than 12,000 feet above sea level, where the air is thin, cold, and remarkably still. This place is known as Pumapunku, its name often translated as the Gate of the Puma. It is a site that has fascinated travelers, archaeologists, engineers, and dreamers for generations. Not because it is large, not because it is decorated, but because it feels strangely out of place. Here, enormous stone blocks lie scattered like pieces of a forgotten puzzle. Some appear sliced with such precision that their surfaces shine faintly in the sunlight. Others are shaped into crisp right angles, perfect grooves, and carefully carved recesses that lock into one another like components of a giant, ancient machine. Even the wind seems to slow down as it passes through, whispering quietly between the stones. To understand Pumapunku, we must step back in time, far back into the world of the Tiwanaku civilization. The people of Tiwanaku lived long before the Inca and long before most written records in the region. They built cities near the shores of Lake Titicaca, created advanced irrigation systems, and developed a spiritual and artistic culture that left its marks in stone, ceramics, and ritual practices. But Pumapunku stands apart. It feels different, more deliberate, more intricate, more mysterious. The stones here are not ordinary stones. They are andesite and diorite, volcanic rocks so hard that modern geologists often compare them to hardened steel. These materials are difficult to carve even today with diamond-tipped tools. Yet, at Pumapunku, blocks made of these extremely tough stones show smooth, geometric, almost polished surfaces. The cuts are clean and sharp. The angles approach mathematical perfection. Some grooves look as though they were shaped by high-speed machinery. And then there are the famous H-shaped blocks, large modular pieces carved with symmetrical recesses and interlocking joints. They resemble architectural components meant to assemble with precision, almost as if the builders were designing something that required perfect alignment and stability. Archaeologists debate their purpose. Some suggest they might have supported terraces or walls. Others believe they may have formed part of a complex ritual structure. There are theories about water channels, astronomical alignments, or administrative centers. And then there is a softer, more imaginative thought that perhaps Pumapunku was a place meant to shape the world around it, through engineering, through ceremony, or through both. But as soothing as it is to imagine the purpose of these stones, there is something even more calming in simply accepting that we do not yet know. The mystery breathes quietly here, without the need for certainty. The Tiwanaku people left no written records to explain their techniques, no inscriptions carved into the stone, no blueprints or instructions. What remains is silent, a silence that invites contemplation rather than answers. One of the most puzzling aspects of Pumapunku is the transportation of its stones. Some weigh up to 100 tons. Yet the quarry where many of these stones originated lies about 10 kilometers away. At this altitude, with no wheels, no carts, and no large draft animals, the task becomes almost unimaginable. Still, the Tiwanaku builders moved them. They shaped them. They placed them with intention. Modern engineers have attempted to understand how this might have been done. Some propose teams of hundreds of workers using ropes and sledges. Others suggest a system of rolling logs. Though wood is scarce in the high-altitude Andean plateau, some think that the builders may have waited for seasonal flooding, floating the stones part of the way. Each idea carries a certain calm logic, but none fully explains the precision found in the finished blocks. As the sun passes slowly across the Andean sky, its light touches the stone faces of Pumapunku, revealing their delicate textures. It casts soft shadows inside the grooves and recesses. And if you stand among the stones at dusk, when the air cools and the plateau becomes quiet, you might feel that this place was never meant to shout its meaning. It was meant to whisper. Let us imagine for a moment the world of the Tiwanaku artisans. Picture them carefully observing the rock, listening to its grain, feeling for the natural fracture lines. Imagine the slow rhythm of their work, the cautious tapping, the polishing with sand and harder stones, the long pauses to examine each angle before continuing. In the quiet of the Andes, time would have moved differently, slower, more patiently, much like the rhythm of this very story. And as we continue our journey, you may feel the steady, calming presence of the Andes themselves, those long, ancient mountains that rise like guardians over Pumapunku. They have watched centuries pass in silence. They have seen storms, migrations, beginnings, and endings. And they still stand here, unchanging, watching over the sleeping stones. But our path tonight does not end in Bolivia. It stretches across oceans, deserts, and continents, all the way to another place where massive stone blocks quietly defy time. A place where the sands of Egypt meet the warm light of the rising sun. A place deep within the Giza Plateau. Beside the Great Sphinx, one of the most recognizable monuments in the world, there lies a structure that receives far less attention, yet holds mysteries just as deep. It is called the Sphinx Temple. And like Pumapunku, it is built from blocks so large, so precisely cut, and so tightly fitted that modern experts still pause to reflect on how they were shaped. Before we arrive there, take a moment to let the Bolivian winds settle in your thoughts. Allow the image of those silent stones to drift gently into the distance. The transition is slow and smooth, like a soft fade between two scenes in a quiet documentary. And now, we move toward Egypt, toward warmth, toward desert air, toward another world of ancient craftsmanship. The Sphinx Temple is constructed from enormous limestone blocks, some weighing up to 200 tons. They are arranged so meticulously that the seams between them are barely visible. No mortar holds them together. They rest solely on the precision of their shape and the patient skill of ancient builders who understood the behavior of stone in ways we still admire today. This temple has no inscriptions, no hieroglyphs, no carvings that tell us who built it or why. It simply exists, quiet, heavy, enigmatic. The blocks are arranged in a pattern that feels both architectural and meditative. Each one is taller than a human being, creating a sense of calm solidity as you walk through the temple. The light enters softly, filtered by the surrounding structures. Footsteps echo gently across the limestone floor, and a mild coolness lingers in the shade. Many researchers attempt to date the Sphinx Temple to the Old Kingdom of Egypt, around 2500 BCE, during the reign of Pharaoh Khafra. This is the conventional view, and it holds historical merit. Yet the construction techniques used here appear remarkably advanced for that period, so advanced that some specialists question whether parts of the temple might be far older, perhaps built on the foundations of an even earlier culture. In the quiet world of archaeology, these are not disputes filled with noise or conflict. They are gentle debates grounded in careful studies of erosion patterns, quarry marks, and architectural styles. They reflect the slow and methodical nature of investigating the past. The Sphinx Temple also invites comparisons with other megalithic structures around the world. Some point to Baalbek in Lebanon, where massive stone platforms of extraordinary size rest immovably beneath ancient ruins. Others draw parallels with sites in Peru, Turkey, or Japan, not to declare a connection, but to observe similarities in technique, scale, or intention. It is soothing to consider that ancient cultures separated by continents might have shared a quiet understanding of stone, a shared respect for the materials of the earth. Even if they never met, they may have listened to the same silent language of geology and time. As the story unfolds, and as your breath continues to slow, the calm of these ancient places settles gently around you. The stones of Puma Punku, the blocks of the Sphinx Temple. Two different worlds connected by mystery, patience, and the quiet strength of human hands. As we arrive at the Giza Plateau, imagine the desert stretching in all directions like a soft, golden ocean. The sands shift gently in the breeze, carrying grains that have been shaped by thousands of years of sun and wind. The Great Sphinx, carved from a single mass of limestone, sits quietly in this landscape, half lion, half human, facing the rising sun with a peaceful, timeless expression. But it is not the Sphinx itself that draws our attention tonight. It is the structure beside it, a quieter place, a place of shadows, stone, and silence. The Sphinx Temple lies just southeast of the great statue. Its appearance is simple: two long halls, a central courtyard, and a few stone pillars standing motionless under the Egyptian sky. Yet the simplicity is deceptive. The deeper you breathe and the slower you observe its form, the more astonishing it becomes. Each block of the Sphinx Temple is an enormous rectangle of limestone, quarried from the bedrock that once surrounded the Sphinx. Some weigh as much as 200 tons, nearly the weight of a modern locomotive. These blocks were not lifted with giant cranes or powerful machines. They were moved with human hands, human imagination, and human determination. The seams between the stones are so paper-thin that even a razor blade cannot slip between them. When the light of morning creeps across the limestone surface, the joints barely cast a shadow. Everything appears fused, though no mortar holds the blocks together. The entire structure stands through weight, precision, and the quiet confidence of its builders. The smoothness of the interior walls creates a gentle acoustic effect. Sound carries softly but clearly, as though the temple were designed for calm rituals for chanting, for prayer, or perhaps for something more practical and architectural. Whatever its original purpose, the atmosphere it creates is soothing. It encourages slow breathing and quiet observation. The Sphinx Temple is one of the oldest stone temples in Egypt, yet strangely, it bears none of the stylistic features we associate with the temples of the Old Kingdom. There are no carved stories, no king's names, no religious instructions, just stone. Massive, quiet stone. To walk through the temple is to experience a subtle shift in perception. The heavy blocks give a sense of grounding and stillness. The thickness of the walls blocks the sound of the outside world. The desert heat softens as you step further into the structure, replaced by a cool, shaded calm. Even the air feels slower, as though time itself pauses between these ancient walls. Archaeologists continue to study the temple, examining tool marks, weathering patterns, and architectural layout. Some argue that it must date to the time of Pharaoh Khafre because the surrounding structures are from that era. Others suggest that erosion patterns on the Sphinx enclosure indicate much older origins, perhaps thousands of years earlier, during a wetter climate. This debate is not about proving a single truth, but about exploring possibilities. It is like gently turning a stone in your hand, noticing its subtle textures without needing to define it too quickly. The Sphinx Temple is built from limestone, a softer stone than the andesite and diorite blocks of Pumapunku. Yet the scale of construction and the precision of placement echo the mysteries of the Andes. In Bolivia, giant stones were shaped with surfaces so smooth they seem machined. In Egypt, enormous blocks were fitted so tightly that they hold their shape after millennia of wind and sand. When we place these two sites side by side, not to claim a connection, but simply to observe, we begin to appreciate something deeper: humanity's long, gentle relationship with stone. Across centuries, continents, and cultures, ancient people shaped stone with care, with patience, and with an understanding that cannot be easily measured. Back at Pumapunku, the blocks lie scattered like pieces of a story interrupted. In Egypt, the Sphinx Temple still stands assembled and stable, its purpose veiled, but its form intact. One site feels like a whisper carried on mountain air. The other feels like an echo preserved in desert stone. Both inspire questions that help the mind drift peacefully. Questions without urgency, without pressure. Questions that encourage reflection rather than conclusion. How did the builders of Pumapunku create perfect right angles in stone, harder than steel? How did the Egyptians transport 200-ton blocks with such effortless-seeming confidence? Why do these sites share a sense of precision and scale rarely seen elsewhere? What knowledge guided the hands of their creators? We do not need answers to feel the calm of the unknown. Sometimes, mystery itself is comforting, like a gentle uncertainty that invites the imagination to wander. Let us travel back to Bolivia for a moment, letting the desert fade and the Andean winds return. Imagine the light shifting across the high-altitude plateau as clouds pass slowly overhead. The stones of Pumapunku rest on dry earth, cool to the touch in the morning and warm in the afternoon. The grooves in the andesite catch small pockets of shadow, forming soft patterns along their edges. Some blocks appear unfinished, others perfectly symmetrical. Some show holes drilled with astonishing accuracy. The famous H-shaped blocks align in ways that almost resemble prefabricated components, pieces of an architectural system designed to repeat and interlock. Modern engineers who study these stones sometimes admit that replicating their precision using traditional ancient tools would be extremely difficult, not impossible, but demanding a level of skill and patience rarely seen today. And this is where the soothing beauty of Pumapunku lies, not in exaggeration, but in the quiet acknowledgement that the people of the past were capable of remarkable craftsmanship. Imagine a group of Tiwanaku artisans working together. Their tools may have been simple, but their coordination, their planning, and their shared understanding of stone could have been sophisticated. Perhaps they worked during specific seasons when weather conditions were favorable. Perhaps they used advanced forms of abrasion, percussion, or controlled fracturing. Perhaps they developed techniques that have simply been forgotten. These possibilities are gentle reminders of how much human knowledge can rise, fade, and rise again. Now let the scene shift once more, slowly and steadily, back to Egypt. The Sphinx Temple waits in the quiet desert sun. Its blocks stand in soft rows, their surfaces warmed by millions of sunrises. As sand drifts along the ground, it creates a soft, whispering sound that blends with the distant hum of wind across the plateau. Archaeologists studying the temple notice that the massive blocks were quarried directly from the Sphinx enclosure. As workers shaped the Sphinx, they removed huge chunks of bedrock, and rather than discarding them, they arranged them into the temple's structure. This method efficiently combined artistic carving with architectural construction, reflecting a deep awareness of material use. Yet the precision remains the most striking feature. Each block fits into the next, like pieces of a massive, three-dimensional puzzle. The corners align smoothly. The surfaces meet with seamless accuracy. Even modern restoration teams sometimes express quiet respect for the techniques used, techniques that remain partly unknown. The presence of these two distant sites, Pumapunku in the Andes and the Sphinx Temple in Egypt, creates a soft, contemplative symmetry. Both rely on extraordinary stonework. Both preserve mysteries. Both invite the mind to slow down and breathe more deeply. But the rhythm of our story must remain gentle. Nothing here rushes, nothing forces interpretation. Like stones resting under ancient skies, the story unfolds at its own peaceful pace. In this soft rhythm, let yourself drift deeper into the calm, deeper into the mystery, deeper into the quiet world of ancient stones. As the desert fades again from view, imagine yourself floating gently above the earth. The world turns slowly beneath you, its landscapes passing like a long, peaceful dream. High mountains, wide plains, quiet rivers, and ancient pathways move below as though drawn with soft strokes across the canvas of time. We drift once more toward the Andean plateau, toward the calm, elevated world of Pumapunku. Here, at more than 12,000 feet above sea level, the air is thin but clear. The sky is a deeper shade of blue, unfiltered by pollution or moisture. In this light, the stones of Pumapunku appear almost luminous. Their surfaces hold a subtle shine, reflecting the long history they have witnessed. One of the most fascinating aspects of Pumapunku is the geometric consistency found across the scattered blocks. Archaeologists and engineers who study the site notice repeating patterns, angles that match, cutouts that align, and joint systems that seem designed for stability and modularity. The H-shaped blocks scattered across the ground like pieces of an ancient blueprint, share proportional relationships. Their recesses and projections appear to follow a deliberate design logic, as though the builders had developed a system of measurements unique to their culture. It is soothing to imagine ancient architects standing among these stones, tracing invisible lines with their hands, calculating proportions with quiet concentration. The andesite used for many of these blocks is a fine-grained volcanic rock with a hardness that rivals steel. Carving it requires patience. Refining it requires control. And yet, at Pumapunku, some surfaces feel almost silky beneath the fingertips, smooth, straight, and precise. Engineers studying the blocks have measured angles that approach perfect 90-degree cuts, grooves that run in straight lines, circular holes that appear uniform in diameter. While these features do not imply anything implausible, they hint at craftsmanship that was exceptionally disciplined. Some researchers propose that the builders used a combination of harder stones, sand abrasives, water, and long-term grinding techniques. Others believe the artisans may have heated and cooled sections of the stone to create micro-fractures that eased carving. There are even theories that they used natural outcrops with pre-existing fracture patterns, choosing andesite sections that were already partly shaped by geological processes. Whatever the method, the result is the same, a quiet testament to human skill. As you imagine standing among these stones, take a slow breath, feel the crisp Andean air. Let the stillness soften the mind. In the distance, you might see the outlines of Lake Titicaca, its deep waters shimmering like polished glass. This lake played a central role in Tiwanaku mythology and daily life. It was a source of food, transportation, and spiritual meaning. Some ancient stories even describe it as the birthplace of gods. Pumapunku itself may have been part of a ceremonial complex connected to these beliefs. Its layout suggests intentional alignments, perhaps marking solstices, equinoxes, or ritual pathways. If you stand at certain locations during specific times of the year, the sun rises or sets in alignment with key architectural features. This subtle interplay of stone and sunlight creates a sense of intentional harmony, a connection between human creation and the rhythm of the natural world. Whether or not these alignments were central to the site's purpose, they add a serene sense of order to the landscape, an order that remains long after the builders themselves disappeared. Let us now let the Andean winds fade once more. Let the plateau recede behind us. Let the sky shift from deep blue to the warm gold of the Egyptian horizon. We return to the Sphinx Temple, where the desert sun warms the massive limestone blocks. The air is dry, and a soft stillness hangs above the sandy ground. Inside the temple's quiet halls, shadows stretch slowly across the floor as the sun moves overhead. The construction of the Sphinx Temple involved a remarkable process. As workers carved the Sphinx from a single mass of limestone, they simultaneously quarried huge blocks of stone from the surrounding bedrock. These blocks, some longer than modern buses and taller than men, were then transported only a short distance and precisely positioned to form the temple walls. The act of shaping both the Sphinx and the temple from the same stone creates a deep architectural harmony. It is as though the temple is a companion to the Sphinx, two forms born from the same geological body, resting side by side for thousands of years. Inside the temple, The lack of inscriptions creates an unusual quiet. Many Egyptian temples are adorned with hieroglyphs that tell stories of gods, kings, and rituals. But here, the stone is plain, smooth, undecorated. Its silence encourages a calm, meditative experience. Without carved narratives, the visitor's mind becomes still, drawn inward. Some researchers believe that the temple once held statues of the pharaoh Khafra, the king traditionally associated with the Sphinx. Large granite pillars and fragments found nearby support this idea. Granite, much harder than limestone, was used sparingly but symbolically in Old Kingdom architecture. These granite elements may have complemented the massive limestone blocks, adding contrast in color and texture. Even today, the remaining granite fragments shine gently in the light, their surfaces holding the faint sparkle of crystalline minerals. The precision of the temple's construction becomes even more impressive when one considers the tools available at the time. Ancient Egyptian stoneworkers used copper chisels, dolerite pounders, stone hammers, and wooden wedges, but their understanding of materials and their patience allowed them to achieve results that still inspire wonder. For example, the outer faces of the limestone blocks were cut so cleanly that the joints between them appear almost invisible. This level of accuracy required careful measurement, repeated adjustments, and a finely tuned sense of craftsmanship. Some stone blocks were shaped with subtle inward angles, helping them lock together securely under their own weight. Walking through the temple at sunset, the soft glow of the sun reaches into the passages and illuminates small details, the texture of ancient tool marks, the gentle curvature of pillars, and the way shadows glide across the limestone surface. The atmosphere becomes almost dreamlike, a balance of light, stone, and silence. Now imagine both sites together, Puma Punku and the Sphinx Temple, existing not as connected histories, but as parallel expressions of human ingenuity. Two cultures, worlds apart, separated by oceans and thousands of years. Two different understandings of stone, two different purposes, and yet both leave us with the same sense of calm wonder. Mystery does not always require answers. Sometimes it simply invites us to breathe more slowly, to appreciate the ancient echoes of craftsmanship, and to reflect on what human beings have achieved with patience and intention. The unknown is not frightening. It is peaceful, gentle, an open landscape in the mind. As our story continues, we will linger a little longer in these spaces, walking slowly through their histories, feeling the presence of their builders, and allowing the quiet of their stones to guide our thoughts. As we drift once more toward the highlands of Bolivia, imagine a slow-moving layer of morning mist rolling across the plateau. The air is cool, carrying the scent of dry earth and distant vegetation. Puma Punku emerges through this gentle fog like an ancient memory, solid, quiet, and patient. In the earliest hours of the day, the stones appear almost blue in the soft light. Their surfaces hold the night's chill, and the shadows they cast are long and delicate. You can almost hear the faint echo of footsteps that once crossed this ground centuries ago. Artisans, priests, travelers, each leaving behind a small imprint on the landscape. One of the most intriguing aspects of Puma Punku is the sheer size of some of its architectural elements. The largest block at the site, often called the slab, weighs more than 130 tons. Moving such a mass without modern machinery would require careful planning and coordinated effort. Not myth, not magic, but ingenuity. Archaeologists studying the Tiwanaku civilization suggest that large workforces and coordinated labor may have played a major role. The people may have used teams of men pulling ropes, combined with rolling logs, earthen ramps, and perhaps even lubricated pathways, techniques found in ancient cultures around the world. Others propose that the builders might have taken advantage of seasonal wet ground, allowing heavy stones to slide more easily. Still, the precision with which these massive blocks were placed remains striking. Some edges line up with such accuracy that even today, they feel as though they were shaped with a calm and steady hand. The site's overall layout also encourages slow contemplation. The scattered stones do not lie in random disorder. Instead, they form patterns that hint at once larger structures, platforms, terraces, and courtyards that may have been part of a ceremonial center. Archaeologists believe Pumapunku was connected to the larger Tiwanaku ceremonial complex nearby. This suggests that the site may have held a special role, perhaps a place of ritual preparation or architectural experimentation. Whether or not this interpretation is correct, the idea itself creates a sense of gentle curiosity. Let your mind wander there for a moment, imagining the Tiwanaku people walking among these stones with purpose, their clothing rustling in the wind, their voices soft, their steps slow and deliberate. Perhaps they carried offerings. Perhaps they carved or shaped stones here. Perhaps they gathered in the open courtyard spaces during important moments of the year. These are possibilities, not certainties, but possibilities can be soothing. Now picture one of the finely cut andesite blocks. Its edges are crisp, its surfaces almost flat. Along one side is a narrow groove, straight and clean, extending the length of the block with a quiet confidence. When sunlight touches this groove, it forms a delicate line of shadow that highlights its precision. Along another block, you may notice a series of small rectangular cutouts, each one measured to match the next. These recesses may have allowed beams or additional stones to interlock, creating stable, earthquake-resistant structures. The engineering behind this interlocking design shows an understanding of load distribution, an understanding that would have been invaluable in the earthquake-prone Andean region. This quiet mastery of stone makes Pumapunku a place not only of mystery, but of respect. Respect for the people who shaped it, respect for their patience, respect for the layers of meaning they embedded in the landscape. As we let the Andean plateau fade gently, we drift once again to the soft, amber light of the Egyptian desert. Evening settles slowly over the Giza Plateau, and the Great Sphinx casts a long, calm shadow across the sand. The Sphinx temple beside it absorbs the warm glow of dusk, its limestone walls turning a gentle shade of rose. Inside the temple, the air cools as the sun lowers. The stone surfaces radiate the day's heat for a brief moment, then slowly surrender it to the desert night. The quiet inside the temple grows deeper, almost velvety. Every sound becomes soft. Footsteps, a distant breeze, the faint shifting of sand. This structure, massive, minimal, and mysterious, has long puzzled historians. Its walls are built from some of the heaviest blocks ever used in ancient Egypt. Some weigh more than the stones of the Great Pyramid itself. Yet the temple is not a pyramid, nor is it a tomb, nor does it follow the usual patterns of Egyptian religious buildings. The oversized blocks are arranged in a style sometimes described as megalithic, similar in concept, but not in origin, to structures found in places like Baalbek in Lebanon. In Baalbek, enormous stones were placed with extraordinary precision, forming the foundation of one of the ancient world's grandest temples. Though the cultural contexts differ entirely, the architectural parallels invite quiet comparison. These observations do not suggest a shared origin, only a shared appreciation for working with large stone. Human cultures often arrive at similar approaches when trying to solve similar problems, and sometimes stones simply inspire builders to think big. The Sphinx Temple's layout also offers a soothing symmetry. A rectangular courtyard opens into long hallways. Pillars line the interior spaces, creating soft, rhythmic shadows. The floor plan is simple, but its simplicity feels intentional, like a space designed to support stillness and ceremony. In recent years, some researchers have proposed that the temple may be older than previously thought. They point to weathering on the nearby Sphinx enclosure walls, patterns that resemble the effects of rainfall rather than wind-blown sand. If true, this might suggest an earlier date, perhaps thousands of years before the Old Kingdom. But these ideas remain debated, and the debate itself moves slowly, like the sand that settles into new shapes with each passing season. This steady pace of discovery adds to the calming nature of the temple. It invites patience, reflection, appreciation for subtle clues rather than rushed conclusions. As we walk through the temple in our imagination, we might notice something else: the combination of limestone and granite. Limestone forms the bulk of the structure, but red granite was used for columns, doorways, and interior walls. This mixture of materials creates a quiet visual contrast: soft beige limestone against deep, polished granite. Granite is notoriously difficult to carve. Even today, shaping it requires diamond-tipped tools or specialized machinery. Yet the ancient Egyptians worked it with remarkable control, using dolerite-pounding stones and persistent effort. The surfaces of these granite elements still hold a faint shine, catching the last rays of sunset as the temple prepares for night. Standing inside the Sphinx Temple at dusk, you may feel as though the very stones are breathing with the desert. The temperature shifts, shadows stretch, the quiet deepens, a calm settles into every corner. Now, as we hold both sites in our thoughts, Puma Punku and the Sphinx Temple, we can sense a gentle thread connecting them. Not a thread of shared culture or lost technology, but a thread of human intention. Across continents and millennia, people have shaped stone in ways that endure long after their voices have faded. They measured, they carved, they moved, they aligned. They created spaces that still speak softly to us today. In this quiet, the mind can rest. There is no urgency to decide what these places mean. No pressure to solve ancient puzzles. Just the simple comfort of knowing that human beings have always reached for something greater, something enduring, something that connects earth, sky, and spirit. As the stars rise above the Egyptian desert and the moon drifts over the Andean plateau, both sites settle into the same peaceful night, half a world apart, but united by silence and stone. As evening settles across the Altiplano, a hush seems to fall over Puma Punku. The light grows softer, turning the surfaces of the stones a pale silver. This is the hour when shadows lengthen and trace the edges of the cut blocks, revealing details that the harsh midday sun can sometimes hide. A visitor walking quietly here might notice how the precision of the cuts becomes even more striking in low light. The edges remain sharp, the angles remain crisp, and the surfaces reflect the fading sun the way polished metal might. It is a reminder that long before modern machinery shaped steel with computer-guided precision, someone standing in this very place was cutting andesite and diorite with accuracy measured in fractions of millimeters. Archaeologists often pause at this point and ask the same question: how did they do it? These stones do not tell their secrets easily. There are no tool marks that match the tools known from the region and era. There are no writings that explain the construction methods. There are no workshops filled with chisels or saws left behind. What we see is only the finished product, work so refined that some researchers have compared it to modern industrial engineering. Still, scholars approach the question with patience and care. Some propose that ancient artisans used harder stones to slowly grind the surfaces, working for long periods of time. Others believe that sand, water, and repetitive abrasion could have shaped the grooves. There are more imaginative suggestions too, ideas that involve lost techniques or forgotten knowledge. None of them are confirmed, and none offer a complete explanation. The mystery remains gentle and unresolved, inviting thought but never demanding certainty. And in a quiet place like this, uncertainty does not feel unsettling. It feels like part of the landscape itself. When night fully arrives, Pumapunku becomes a different world. The air cools quickly at this altitude, and the stars appear with unusual clarity. Constellations shine brightly above the dark geometry of fallen stones. Some researchers believe that the layout of the site, as well as neighboring structures in Tiwanaku, may have been influenced by the movement of the sun, the moon, or even the stars. Alignments have been proposed. Some seem intentional, some may simply be coincidence. What is certain is that the people who lived here paid close attention to the sky. It guided their agriculture, their ceremonies, and perhaps even their architectural designs. In the calm darkness, a person standing among the ruins might imagine the sounds that once filled this space. Voices chanting, water flowing through channels, wind moving over stone. Pumapunku, now silent, was once part of a living city. Though the city has faded away, the stones remain steady and unhurried, offering only as much information as the viewer has patience to receive. As we gently leave Bolivia behind, the story shifts quietly to another part of the world. Thousands of miles away, across the ocean and into the desert sands of northern Africa, another ancient structure waits in stillness. It is overshadowed by one of the most famous monuments on Earth, yet it holds mysteries of its own. Beside the Great Sphinx of Giza lies the Sphinx Temple, a place built from limestone blocks so massive that many people walk past without realizing the scale of the engineering before them. The Sphinx Temple does not immediately draw attention. It has no towering facade. It carries no inscriptions, no carvings of kings, no decorative flourishes to proclaim its importance. Instead, it presents itself with quiet strength. Its walls are made of blocks weighing up to 200 tons each, stones as large as small houses, fitted together with seams thinner than a fingernail. There is no mortar between them. There is only contact, stone meeting stone, with such careful placement that even after thousands of years, the joints are still tight and smooth. When one steps inside, The walls rise in broad, simple planes. The atmosphere feels calm and grounded. The structure has a weight that is more than physical. Its design is minimalistic, almost modern in appearance. Some visitors say it feels like walking into a timeless sanctuary. Others describe it as a puzzle made of stone, monumental pieces arranged with quiet intention. Archaeology attributes the Sphinx Temple to the Old Kingdom of Egypt, around 2500 BCE, during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre. This is the conventional view, based on the presence of statues that were found inside and believed to represent the pharaoh. But as with Puma Punku, questions arise. The construction techniques used here seem more advanced than the typical stonework of the time. Most Old Kingdom structures rely on smaller blocks, careful but not nearly as massive or as precisely fitted as these. The temple, like the Sphinx enclosure itself, also shows signs of weathering that some researchers argue may predate the Old Kingdom. These ideas are not settled. They remain part of ongoing debates within archaeology and geology. Some scholars maintain that everything fits comfortably within the known history of ancient Egypt. Others believe the temple may incorporate much older foundations or even represent an earlier phase of construction that later Egyptians reused. The possibilities remain open, but gently, without any need for dramatic conclusions. As we move slowly through the inner corridors, the stone absorbs sound. Footsteps feel muted. The thick walls block the noise of the modern world outside. It is easy to feel suspended in time. The simplicity of the design, straight lines, massive blocks, and quiet chambers encourages slow breathing and soft thoughts. Light enters the space in narrow beams, illuminating dust particles that drift through the air. The effect is peaceful, almost meditative. Archaeologists studying the Sphinx Temple note that its blocks were likely quarried from the material removed when shaping the body of the Great Sphinx. This idea fits the geology of the region. But even with that explanation, a puzzle remains. How did ancient builders move stones of such size? Some of the largest weigh more than 200 tons. Moving a single one today would require industrial cranes and carefully coordinated teams. Yet thousands of years ago, workers transported them, positioned them, and aligned them with extraordinary precision. Historians propose various methods: sledges lubricated with water, large teams of workers, ramps built of limestone and packed earth. These techniques have been demonstrated successfully with smaller stones. With larger ones, the methods become more theoretical. But the Egyptians were skilled engineers, and their ability to organize labor is well documented. The truth may be a combination of known techniques and experience handed down over generations. The Sphinx Temple feels ancient in a different way than Puma Punku. Where Puma Punku feels like an unfinished project or a workshop frozen in time, the Sphinx Temple feels complete, simple, calm, and quietly imposing. Both sites, though separated by oceans and cultures, share a sense of precision and purpose. They also share something less tangible, an atmosphere that makes visitors speak in softer voices, as though the stones appreciate gentleness. Some researchers point out similarities between the megalithic blocks of the Sphinx Temple and those found in places like Baalbek in Lebanon, another ancient site built with stones of extraordinary size. These comparisons do not imply a direct connection, but they highlight a broader question. Why do ancient civilizations in different parts of the world sometimes choose to work with stones so large that even modern engineers approach them with caution? The reasons are not fully clear. They may involve symbolism, structural stability, religious significance, or practical considerations lost to time. Theories move quietly through scholarly discussions, never claiming certainty. Some suggest forgotten engineering methods. Others focus on the cultural motivations behind building on such a monumental scale. Many simply appreciate the craftsmanship without needing a final answer. The mystery, in this case, supports the serenity of the space. It allows the mind to drift without urgency. When stepping back outside the Sphinx temple and looking toward the massive statue of the Sphinx itself, the connection between the structures begins to feel natural. Both share the same bedrock. Both have endured millennia of wind and sand. Both hold stories that are partly known and partly hidden. Together, they form one of the most intriguing corners of ancient Egypt, a place where history meets silence and where unanswered questions invite gentle reflection rather than confusion. In this calm atmosphere, the desert breeze carries the scent of warm sand. The horizon glows with soft gold as the sun lowers behind the pyramids. The stones, worn but still standing, catch the last rays of light in a way that feels timeless. It is easy to stand here and understand why so many people throughout history have been drawn to these monuments. They do not shout for attention. They simply exist, steady and patient, like the earth itself. And so, in both Bolivia and Egypt, we find two very different landscapes, one high and cold in the Andes, the other warm and dry in the Sahara. Yet both hold structures that speak the same quiet language of precision, dedication, and mystery. Both invite slow contemplation. Both remind us that the ancient world was full of capabilities and motivations that we are still learning to understand. And both remain peacefully open to all who wish to walk among their stones and listen. As the night deepens over the desert, the air cools and the sky begins to fill with stars once more. The Sphinx temple grows quiet again, as it has every evening for thousands of years. There is no rush here, no urgency, only patience and time and the soft rhythm of wind over stone. You may allow your thoughts to settle, just as the sands settle around the ancient blocks. Let the slow story of these places linger for a moment. Let it fade gently, like distant footsteps in a long hallway. The mysteries remain, but they do not demand answers. They simply offer calmness in their presence. Far from the desert winds of Giza, and far from the cool, high plains of the Andes, there is a quiet space within the mind where ancient places begin to connect in gentle, unexpected ways. When we think of Puma Punku and the Sphinx temple together, we begin to notice a subtle thread that runs through both. It is not a thread of culture or direct influence. Instead, it is a thread of human curiosity, an echo of our shared desire to build, to shape, to understand, and perhaps even to leave something behind that will endure long after we are gone. In the calm reflection that follows these two journeys, we can step back and consider the broader picture. Across the world, ancient builders created structures that push the edges of what we assume they were capable of. Some use stones so hard that even modern tools struggle to shape them. Others worked with blocks so massive that contemporary machines would require careful planning and significant force to move. And yet these achievements were completed not in factories or industrial zones, but under open skies, with simple tools, creative minds, and generations of knowledge rooted in tradition. Archaeologists often point to the power of community in ancient construction. They imagine groups of workers, artisans, planners, and leaders working in harmony toward a shared vision. In this interpretation, the stones of Pumapunku, carefully cut and smartly shaped, reflect a society that valued precision and order. The structure may have served ceremonial purposes or engineering functions or something more complex. Whatever its role, it required coordination, talent, and time. Similarly, in Egypt, the Sphinx Temple stands as a testament to organized labor and architectural experience. Long before cranes or steel tools existed, teams of people shaped limestone blocks and placed them with care. This skill was not accidental. It was the result of practice, learning, and the steady refinement of techniques passed down through centuries. When we think about these accomplishments, it becomes easier to imagine that ancient people, like people today, took pride in their work. They understood their materials intimately. They knew the subtle differences in stone quality, the best ways to split a block, the safest way to transport it, the most effective way to polish a surface. They would have observed how light reflected off certain angles, how edges aligned, how structures behaved under the weight of time and weather. And though the details of their knowledge remain hidden from us, lost in the absence of written manuals or technical instructions, the outcomes still stand. They stand as steady reminders of what can be achieved when creativity and patience come together. The night deepens over both sites as this broader reflection continues. In Bolivia, the air becomes crisp, and small crystals of frost may begin to form on the stone surfaces. In Egypt, the desert cools more softly, holding onto its warmth, before slowly releasing it into the sky. Both environments create a natural stillness, a quiet that encourages slow breathing and thoughtful curiosity. In this stillness, we may allow ourselves to imagine the builders not as distant figures, but as people who once walked across these stones, touched these surfaces, and looked up at these same stars. They lived lives we cannot fully reconstruct, shaped by beliefs we do not entirely understand, guided by motivations that remain partly mysterious, but they also worked with their hands, sweated under the sun, and made decisions based on skill and experience, just as builders do today. The more calmly we sit with these ideas, the easier it becomes to appreciate the mystery without needing to solve it. Some questions remain open, not because answers are out of reach, but because the questions themselves create a gentle space for wonder. They remind us that history is not a closed book. It is a vast landscape with familiar paths and hidden corners. Some aspects we understand clearly. Others remain quiet and distant, like mountains seen through morning mist. In this view, Pumapunku and the Sphinx Temple both become anchors, 2 points on a wide map of ancient human achievement. Each offers its own story. Each holds its own atmosphere. Each invites us to slow down, to observe, and to imagine with care. And when taken together, they form a bridge across continents, across centuries, and across cultures. A quiet conversation between stone and sky, between past and present, and between the known and the unknown. As our quiet journey comes to an end, the world around these ancient places grows still. The last traces of daylight fade from both horizons. the golden desert of Egypt, and the cool plateau of Bolivia. Night has settled fully now, covering each site with a soft blanket of shadow. The stones, so heavy, so old and so carefully shaped, rest in silence once more. It is in this peaceful darkness that their stories feel most alive. They do not speak loudly. They do not insist on being understood. Instead, they offer a calm reminder of time's gentle passage, of civilizations that rose, flourished, and eventually grew quiet. They remind us that mystery does not always require answers. Sometimes it simply invites reflection. Pumapunku, with its perfectly carved blocks of andesite and diorite, lies beneath the vast Andean sky. The stars shimmer above the unfinished stones as if watching over them. Here, the precision cuts and interlocking shapes feel almost frozen in mid-thought, as though the builders stepped away for a moment and never returned. The air is crisp, and the quiet is deep. Even the wind moves softly through the ruins, like a whisper that carries memories of hands that shaped stone with impossible patience. Across the ocean, the Sphinx Temple rests under the desert's cool night. Its enormous limestone blocks sit firmly, unchanged by the passing of thousands of years. The Great Sphinx watches nearby, timeless and calm. Within the temple walls, shadows settle into the fine seams between stones, seams so narrow they are barely visible. The structure seems to breathe slowly, as if exhaling the warmth of the day and welcoming the chill of the night. Together, these places form a gentle echo, stretching across continents and centuries. They remind us of human hands that reached for something beyond themselves, of ancient minds that worked carefully and quietly, shaping the world in ways we still admire. As you let your thoughts drift now, you may feel a sense of calm widening inside you. The stones, the sky, the long distances, the soft mysteries, all of them begin to blur into a peaceful haze. You no longer need to imagine the details. You do not need to solve the puzzles. You can simply rest alongside them, letting their stillness wash over you. The world becomes softer. The questions grow quieter. The rhythm slows down. Take a gentle breath. Let it out slowly. Just as the ancient builders once paused between each careful stroke of their tools, you can pause here too, only resting, only breathing, only being. The night settles deeper. The stars grow dimmer, and the ancient stones, patient and enduring, wait calmly beneath the sky as they always have. Thank you for joining this quiet journey across time and across continents. May the mysteries of these places lull your mind into softness. May the stillness of the desert and the calm of the high plains guide you gently into sleep. And may you drift peacefully through the unknown.